Hello, Mr. President.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Welcome to Baghdad.
Thanks so much for having us here.
Welcome to my office.
We really appreciate it. Should we go? Thank you so much. So, with the year that Saddam Hussein came to power in Iraq, you were imprisoned and tortured. And now, 40 years later, you're sitting here in a palace that used to be owned by Saddam Hussein.
Yes.
How does that feel?
I was a prisoner in Saddam's prisons, and they were really, really awful experience. And many of the friends who were with me in prison perished. I survived. I got out. And I went and visited Saddam in prison as well.
Tell me about that.
It was quite a difficult moment. On one hand, I went to visit him as a prisoner. I was then Deputy Prime Minister of Iraq. I wanted to make sure that he's treated better than the way other Iraqis were treated under his rule. It dawned on me that power is transient. At the end of the day, it really matters what you do with power.
So let's talk about the troubles outside the palace. You have the crisis, I think it's fair to use that word, in northern Syria, with Turkey invading, the US pulling out. Many hundreds of thousands of Kurds have been displaced. They fear ethnic cleansing now. You have other countries moving in, Russia filling the vacuum. You have some ISIS prisoners escaping. I know that's a concern of yours. And then you have your own troubles here in Iraq with the protests on the streets against what they say is the government's corruption. And over all of that, you have America and Iran. They've been on the brink of war for months.
And I'm here in Baghdad. This is where all these issues are at play. This is quite a moment in history. This is, in some ways, the perfect storm.
You must be frightened for your country.
I'm very concerned, deeply concerned. What concerns me deeply, what is happening in Syria, not just in Syria, but also in Iraq. The implications are huge. We are now...
You mean the American withdrawal?
Indeed, the Turkish invasion, this new dynamics in Syria, it is truly dangerous. ISIS, we still have elements of ISIS roaming between the Iraqi and Syrian border. We have thousands of ISIS detainees. This new dynamics in Syria is unleashing these groups, empowering them to consolidate and really take us on.
President Trump hasn't used the phrase mission accomplished. I think everyone saw that with Bush. But in other words, he has said mission accomplished. He said, we beat ISIS, time to bring our soldiers home.
United States have been involved in the Middle East for a number of years, for a long, long time. And I can understand that people want to disassociate themselves from the troubles in this part of the world. We live in an interconnected world. What happened in Iraq impacted your security, and vice versa. Your policies impact the Middle East too as well. These extremists have been given a major reprieve as a result of these unfolding events in Syria, and we have to take it very, very seriously. ISIS took over Mosul with 300 people 5 years ago. Now we're talking about thousands of trained extremists who will be able, I fear, to really threaten our security and the security of the world.
President Trump said that the Kurdish region on the Syrian border, that it needed to be cleaned up. And Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat, said he found that language chilling given the history of ethnic cleansing. How did that sound to your ears?
I'm worried about ethnic cleansing, and this has been the history, tragic history of the Kurdish people, and this dangerous and tragic, and the humanitarian cost is just awful.
And Trump said that the Kurds didn't fight at Normandy. Did you see that?
I did see that.
What did you think of that?
Anyway.
To what extent do you think President Trump has thought through the consequences of these decisions?
I'm the president of Iraq, and Mr. Trump is the president of the United States. I deal with the consequences of the policy of the United States. You, as an American, you can think about how your decision-making is done. I don't interfere in domestic affairs of the United States.
No, I fully understand that. I mean, but do you think that they know that these consequences are what's going to happen?
We have had serious conversations about this with senior American officials, and I've said that the military defeat of ISIS is an important victory, but not incomplete, and precarious too as well. It can easily unravel.
Right.
And this is what I'm worried about. 5 years of blood, treasure, effort, a lot of human misery went into defeating ISIS. This victory was no easy. And for anyone to become complacent about it is terrible, reckless, dangerous, tragic.
It sounds like you're worried about what President Trump has done in northern Syria.
The entire neighborhood is concerned about the implications of this policy, the Turkish invasion, U.S. policy, and its implications for the wider U.S. policy in the Middle East. This is causing everybody to recalibrate, to rethink, and the implications for the Middle East are huge.
You use the word recalibrate. To what extent can you trust America as an ally in the era of President Trump?
The staying power of the United States is being questioned in a very, very serious way. And allies of the United States are worried about the dependability of the United States.
What does recalibrating mean?
Rethinking. Dependability is important.
Iran, Russia?
Of course, many actors in this neighborhood. And this is, I'm not one of those, again, who goes and say to Americans or the Russians, if you're not doing this for me, I'm going to go the other way around. We need to think of our own priorities, and I've been very clear about it. But for the United States and its role in the world, not just in the Middle East, this is a significant moment.
Let's assume Trump is reelected, okay? And let's assume that the current direction of American policy continues. What does the Middle East look like without American leadership?
Since the 1950s, the United States was a major actor in this neighborhood, and a lot of people, a lot of states have anchored their policy in the alliance with the United States. This is going to be a very different Middle East.
How worried are you about a war between the United States and Iran?
I am worried. And I know for sure the conflict will mean more disaster for everybody. Lesson from Iraq, we all thought, including myself, that removing Saddam Hussein will be easy. And it was not that difficult, but the ensuing years taught us all that starting a war is easy, ending it is not so easy.
Let's say the war happens. The US and Iran go to war. Iran starts attacking American troops that are stationed here in your country. You have managed so far to be an ally to both countries, to be neutral. You might have to pick a side.
Iran is a neighbor of ours. We have 1,400 kilometers of borders with Iran. And we cannot wish Iran ill. It's not in our interest. It's in our interest to have good relations with Iran. The United States is an important ally, partner. We want that to continue. And we definitely don't want our territory to be used because Iraq cannot sustain it, cannot survive it.